I thought it'd be very important to do a presentation on healthcare for children. It's one of the most important things we can talk about in our country today. So if we look at where we're at in the world as far as healthcare for kids, we're 54th in the world at infant mortality rate, which means kids who die before the age of 1. So despite spending more money than any other country and having this elaborate healthcare system, which is pretty much just a disguise, we're 54th in the world at infant mortality rate. We have a lot of kids that die. And then let's look at some of the diseases that affect kids: asthma, autism, ADHD, colic, which is a stomach disorder, small intestine disorder, learning disorders, cancer, diabetes, and obesity. What they all have in common is they're all on the rise in our country. We do a horrible job. Asthma's going up every year. Cancer, which used to be a rarity and for kids to get, now it's the second leading cause of death for kids, I think, behind suicide. So we got kids now that are sick, they're obese. As far as diabetes, what we used to call type 2 diabetes is adult onset diabetes, because you poison yourself over time and get it later on in life. Kids are getting it now at an early age, 10 years old, 11 years old, which was unheard of 20, 30 years ago. So we are literally just poisoning our kids over and over again. But the question I have is, why do we still go to MDs for healthcare? Right? The standard protocol for kids is to have a pediatrician. Man, they're failing. They're failing at a miserable rate. So why do we keep doing that? And obviously the answer is fear, and we don't know anything else. We don't understand. We don't take the time to look at what we're doing to these kids and realize, wow, we're poisoning them from when they're born. So let's take a look at what current healthcare is for kids. First of all, when you're pregnant, now they're prescribing medications. The foods you eat when you're pregnant are going and they're affecting these kids. So if the mom's eating burgers and fries and sugar and all this processed stuff and chemicals, that's going into the kids, so it's going to affect development. So right off the bat, your kid's starting off weak. Then when they're born, this is a picture of a C-section. Now, when you have a C-section, we're going to get into this later on, it puts tremendous amount of stress on the spine. But even worse than that, when you are going through the vaginal canal, if you have a normal natural birth, that's the baby's first exposure to bacteria, and it comes from the mother, and it comes from healthy bacteria, and that bacteria goes into the mouth and the nose, and it ends up being the first bacteria in the digestive tract, which becomes the kid's immune system. On a C-section, you don't get that route. You come out, and your first exposure to bacteria is the hospital, which has deadly, nasty bacteria all over it. So you can see the difference right there. Not to mention, this actually has a neurological effect on the kid. As soon as they're born, vaccine after vaccine, the first thing they used to do is give you silver nitrate in the eyes just in case the mom had gonorrhea, which is a simple blood test. Now what they use is antibiotics. So instead of just checking the mom saying, hey, do you have gonorrhea? And she's like, no. What they do is that you come out and they give you antibiotics right away. I mean, just pure poison. First welcome to life moment. Looking at vaccines, you get a vaccine first couple of days of life. You get a Hep B vaccine, which you get from sex or from sharing needles, which I don't think any little kid's going to do. In the Hep B vaccine, there is yeast, which a lot of kids are allergic to. Looking at the vaccine schedule now, 49 doses of 14 vaccines before the age of 6. Okay, that's a tremendous amount. So if a baby was born in the 1980s, he had about 10, maybe 15 doses. In the 1940s, there were about 2 to 5 doses. Now this was older, 49 doses, I think was in 2013. I think it's closer to 60 doses of vaccines. And if you look at what they're vaccinating for, a lot of the stuff is not dangerous. Measles, mumps, these are things that used to be pretty common back in the 1950s and 60s, very low death rate from it. If you kept a healthy immune system, it was no problem. Even something like polio. We hear all the horror stories of polio. Over 70% of people who had polio didn't even know they had it because it didn't feel like anything. If you're healthy, these things don't bother you. Now they're doing chickenpox vaccines. I mean, just all this stuff that it doesn't need to be in there. Let's go on here. Kids get a little bit older. What do? we drug them. We give them medications for everything. You get a cold, medicine. You give them any kind of fever, medicine. So kids are just getting bombarded with this stuff. Then they get a little older. These are pictures of tonsils. Tonsils get a little swollen. Your tonsils are part of your lymphatic system, which is your drainage system. Okay? They're the first thing when you have any kind of bacteria, bug that come into your mouth. There's your lymph nodes, or your your tonsils there to protect you. But think of them as big lymph nodes, which are centers to get rid of toxicity. You have immune system cells in there fighting things. And what do? We do surgery. We cut them out, right? And then as the kid gets older, these are the lunches they're exposed to. This is a standard school lunch. So let's go through this, right? Now remember, we're frugivores. We're supposed to be eating 80% fruit. That's really what it should be. And you can make an argument, okay, add some vegetables in there too. So mostly fruits and vegetables, very little anything else. What are they serving? Chicken nuggets, horrible stuff. Tater tots, horrible stuff. They have milk here, which again, pasteurized, homogenized, getting rid of all the good, healthy stuff out of it. Acidic reactions from this. Usually most milk today has sugar added to it. And then you got your cookies over here. Oh yeah, you got your dipping sauce with high fructose corn syrup. So you have a little orange here, and then everything else is acid forming toxic stuff. So we wonder why our kids are getting sick. Look at this trend. Medications from pregnancy all the way until they're 18 years old and on their own. Highly toxic stuff. Here's the foods they're eating. I mean, kids drink soda, they drink Gatorade, all this stuff filled with sugars, nasty stuff, acid-forming stuff. And then we wonder why all these diseases are going up. It's not rocket science. It's pretty simple. So what is this care doing to their nervous system and doing to the fluids of their body? It's pure poison. So we have a healthcare system that is not healthcare. Okay? It's not a mystery as to why we're so sick. We don't have healthcare for kids. We create lifetime customers. What we do is we set them up with an acidic fluid life and a damaged nervous system from when they're born. And then as they get older, they have all their health problems and they just get put on pills and they have customers for life. And that's the reality of our healthcare system. This is what we want. We are urging people to get away from. This is not creating a healthy society. This is the first generation of kids that have a lower life expectancy than their parents. That's never happened in human history, and we need to stop following the pediatrician advice. We absolutely have to. It's killing us. So let's talk about what to do. What's real healthcare? Again, this is review from some of our earlier videos, but what you need, what every cell needs, the most important thing it needs is a connection to the brain through the nerve system. Okay? A healthy nervous system makes sure the brain is talking to every single cell of the body, and every cell is going to do its job. The upper cervical subluxation, which is the top bone of your neck, called your atlas, when it misaligns, it'll put direct pressure on your brainstem and disconnect the brain from parts of the body. That will damage the nervous system and lead to sickness later on. Number two, we need clean fluids in the body. The blood, which is delivering all the nutrients, and the lymphatic system, which is the waste removal. We need to make sure those systems are running smoothly. And again, toxic food, horrible nervous system, medications, toxins, herbicides, pesticides, meats, dairies, eggs, these things clog up the system. So we go back to what we're doing today to our kids. This is it. They are sick, they are suffering, and nobody is getting to these causes, okay? So let's talk about first the subluxation, okay? What is the primary cause of subluxation? I'm going to show a little bit of graphic pictures, but I think it's very important to see this. Birth. Birth is very traumatic nowadays. The birthing position, the woman on her back with her legs up, was created by a medical doctor because they didn't want to lie on the ground. A woman should normally use gravity to feed them. So they stand up to give birth, they squat, things like that. Laying down totally changes the anatomy, makes it a lot harder for the kid to come out. And you can see in these pictures the doctor just pulling, tugging on the head. Very common to get a misalignment in the top bone of the neck, okay? C-sections are even worse. A lot of people think, oh, a C-section's easier, you can just grab the kid. No. A lot of times they got to use a vacuum extractor or forceps to pull the kid out. And you can see in these pictures here, this is a normal standard birth, how much pulling and twisting is happening to these kids right away. There was a medical doctor, German medical doctor, who was a neurologist, who actually was friends with B.J. Palmer. He was a skeptic of what he did, and then he met him and researched it and was blown away. And he found that 80% of children are born with a subluxation. So right off the bat, welcome to life, pull, twist on the head, and it disconnects your brain from parts of your body, and your nervous system is already weakened, and you get weakened parts of your body. Okay. There was a study done with sudden infant death syndrome by Dr. Anthony Dobbs. He autopsied 2,000 kids that had died from sudden infant death syndrome, which is where your lungs pretty much stop breathing. What he did was he autopsied them, looked at their atlas and their axis, the upper cervical spine, and found all 2,000 kids had a subluxation, had a misalignment of that top bone, putting pressure on the brainstem, which is 100% correlation, which is unheard of in medical studies. So that's why now they tell you to put your kids on their back. When their top bone of the neck was twisted and turned, and the kid was laying down and they had to turn their head to breathe, that turning of the neck would twist that bone just enough and cut the connection from the brain to the lungs. So that's how important it is to get kids checked for subluxation. Imagine a world where everybody got checked for subluxation at birth. You would see a completely different planet literally in just a generation. Just to show you, I want to show you this quick little video. It's labeled as a comedy. Play it here. Showing all the times kids fall.
Hey, back up so he can throw it to you. Back up. Oh,
there's a subluxation.
Gosh.
There's one. And I know it's labeled as comedy, but man, what's happening to that kid's upper neck? So kids fall about 5,000 times when learning how to walk. So you can see this is just a short example. It's funny, we ask people all the time, okay, do you remember any accidents or falls growing up? What could have caused this? They'll say, no, I never had an accident or fall, but we all remember just falls like this growing up. It happens. So when these falls happen, that top bone of the neck will misalign and it'll put pressure on the brainstem, and some early things that'll happen: ear infections, colic, ADHD, one of the things I see a lot of are bad grades. Kids in school who are doing horrible, getting D's and C's, they think they're stupid. We give them an adjustment, and literally within a week they're an A student again. I've had teachers come in because the kids I've adjusted changed so dramatically that they're like, wow, what just happened? And again, the quicker you get to a subluxation, the more profound the change is, because there's very little recovery you need to go through. Anger, depression, better athletic performance. We get a lot of kids who are like one of the slowest kids in their class, and we'll adjust them, and all of a sudden they become the fastest kid in their class within 3-4 weeks. Pretty amazing. But their nervous system is controlling their lung capacity, all the muscles of their body. So it makes sense, as these kids are born with subluxation, they get this subluxation, we give them an adjustment, and their nervous system turns right back on, and the amount of energy that floods their body is just awesome to them. Okay, get a lot of kids with asthma, it totally goes away. All of these things that we're told that are incurable or you have it for life, it's a bunch of bull crap. These things can heal up. Your cells of your body are meant to heal. They're meant to work. If you have asthma, it's because the cells of your body aren't working. The lungs aren't working the way they should. But again, return function to them. It's better. I like to use this analogy. If I poured acid on my skin every day, you would see a mark on my skin. But we would say, oh, this is easy to get rid of. Just stop pouring acid. The body will heal. Right? It's no different than in our lungs or any other tissue of our body, right? If you have acid on the inside forming, it's going to cause damage to cells. Now the medical side likes to say, oh, you can't heal this. Let's give you these drugs to counterbalance the symptoms, right? So if I have thyroid disease, if I have low T3, here's a drug to give you T3. That's not healing your thyroid. It's not saying, why isn't the thyroid working? right? Which is a very simple process. Get the nervous system working again, get rid of the acids to the area, and the cells come back alive. So it's the same with these kids, man. They heal so fast because they're so ready to. They're so young and healthy. Just to show you a little story here. My first year in practice, I got a call from a friend. A girlfriend of hers just had a baby born with a tumor on its heart, and this kid, his heart rate would fluctuate. It would go all the way up to about 170, and then it would drop down to about 60, and it wasn't stable. And they wanted to fly this kid to Miami and do a surgery on this little kid's heart. So they called me in. I literally had to sneak into the NICU and find this kid. And when I saw this kid, he was the reddest kid I've ever seen. He looked like a tomato. It was just bright, bright red. And with a kid, it's really simple to check. So I had to sneak in and then pretend like I was an uncle because the doctors wouldn't let me there. Sitting there checking this kid, his one leg is a lot shorter than the other, which is a big indicator that the top bone of the neck is misaligned. Felt the side of his neck. One side felt normal. The other side felt like a rock. I mean, it was hard. You couldn't press in on it. And I made the tiniest little adjustment. With a baby, it's so easy. You just put your pinky on it and wait for it to melt. And all of a sudden, I felt it melt, felt it relax. I saw this look of euphoria on this little baby's face. Went away, came back an hour later. His color was perfectly normal. Heart rate totally stabilized. Ended up, a day later, they released the kid. They said, "You're fine." Lost contact with the mother. About 6 months later, 8 months later, she comes in and says her tumor on the heart totally went away. Completely healed up. Mother was just so happy with it. And this is the power it has. This is why kids need to get checked for this stuff. This kid, if he didn't get checked, didn't get adjusted, would have had a surgery on his heart. Who knows what would have happened to this poor little kid. And now he's doing awesome. Okay? Let's talk about the immune system and how it develops in the body. So when a baby is born, first of all, we talked about this earlier, through the vaginal canal it gets its first bacteria, which goes into the gut, which becomes the first immune system really of the body, and how you can start to break down foods. It's really important to go that way. But after that, the baby still needs to develop, and that happens through breastfeeding. The mom is passing on the immune system through the milk, through breastfeeding. And a lot of kids aren't breastfed. Now it's coming back, which is awesome, but it's very, very important to that. Also, kids will develop their taste buds through breastfeeding. What happens is if the mom eats a lot of sugar and eats a lot of processed food, lots of hamburgers, things like that, that's what's going to develop this kid's taste buds. So when the kid gets older, he's going to want to eat all that garbage. He's not going to like the fruits and vegetables. If the mom is eating plenty of fruits and vegetables and that's it, when you breastfeed the kid, that's what the taste buds are going to develop in that child. Okay? And then finally, if you look at when kids are growing, they don't have a healthy immune system, they have to grow one. So what happens is bacteria and viruses have to come into the kid, and the kid has to build the immune system up and fight it off. So growing up, kids should be looking sickly a lot. They should get a lot of mucousy boogers, they should get fevers, they should get colds. That's what we want. The worst thing you could do is give them an antibiotic. It's going to destroy their whole immune system, and when they get older, they're going to have no immune system at all. So let kids be sick. Let them get a fever. 103 degrees, 104 degrees is totally safe and fine. They're going to be fine with it as long as you're giving them healthy foods and checking their nervous system. Now compare this to the current care. Now in South Florida, there are some hospitals that have over a 70% C-section rate, which is ridiculous. People are scheduling their births now because they don't want to be inconvenienced. It's horrible, horrible parenting. Okay, let the kid come out naturally. Now, again, breastfeeding is coming back, thank God. But now, when kids get sick, they're giving them antibiotics. So we're developing these kids who are toxic, who have no immune system, and their taste buds are just so all over the place because their mother has just been eating junk food, and now that's what they think they're supposed to have. So let's go over some common conditions and what to do when you have it. A fever at 104 degrees or 102 degrees is killing bacteria. At 103, it's killing cancer cells and viruses. Fever is awesome to have. Let a kid get a fever. It's fantastic. It's killing the weaker cells of the body. Do not give them anything. No ice, no Tylenol, anything like that. It's just gonna keep the fever low. Again, don't treat symptoms. Increase health. Giving them a pill is not going to make them healthier. It's actually going to destroy their health. Same with ear infections. Again, no antibiotics. Let them fight it naturally. Let them get rid of it. But the most important thing is you want to make sure their upper cervical spine is in place. Stomach ache just means they're probably eating something they shouldn't, so pay attention to what they've been eating. If they don't have an appetite, let them fast a little bit. Fasting is a common occurrence. When kids are sick or when humans are sick, we don't have an appetite. We don't have it for a reason. We want to let that stuff happen. A cold, very common for kids to have. Again, most of the stuff we see is actually part of the immune system. So coughing is the immune system getting stuff out of us. Sneezing, getting junk out of us. All that mucus and boogers coming out, it's all toxicity draining out of us. So a temperature, we already talked about it. All of these things are the immune system. We freak out and we're taught to give them some kind of medicine to block all the symptoms. But what happens is all that poison stays inside of your kid. You want to be expelling all this stuff all the time. Headache, first thing I would check right away is the upper cervical spine. Headaches are not normal. Kids should not get headaches. If a kid is getting a headache, it's a red flag. You need to get the kid checked for subluxation and change his diet immediately. With ADHD, again, number one, let kids exercise, let them outside. They need to get their energy out. And number two is watch what they're eating. A lot of times parents think they're doing a good job because they're giving their kids like a juice, like orange juice. Unless you're making the juice naturally and doing it from a juicer, most of the stuff has tons of sugar added and it's horrible. They take all the fiber out of it. So kids will get all kind of wonky when they have this stuff. So take out the fruit juices and give them just healthy fruits and vegetables and make sure their upper cervical spine is in place. Same with neck and back pain. Kids should never have this stuff. It's a sign right away. Don't just rule it out like, oh, they're fine. Make sure they get their upper neck checked by an upper cervical doctor right away. Again, do not treat symptoms. Symptoms are never the problem. They're fire alarms going off telling you something is going on. When you have a symptom, look to increase their health. Okay? Medicines do not increase health. They increase acidity in the body. They damage the liver. They block symptoms from happening and keep all the garbage inside of you. So if we had to break this down into one slide, how to take care of your kids, most important thing, get their upper necks checked. Sometimes parents are worried about money, and it's like, first of all, most doctors will work with you, but number two, most people have no problem shelling out thousands of dollars for braces, right? What's more important, their teeth or their brainstem, right? It's just because our society doesn't focus on the brainstem, but it is way more important than anything else you can do for your kid. Getting their brainstem and their nervous system healthy should be a priority for every parent. Natural birth and breastfeed until 2 years old minimum. Mom better eat healthy too during this time. A diet of fruits, some vegetables for the kids. See what they like. You know, if you put half a table of fruit, half a table of vegetables out there, and you get like a whole bunch of 10-year-olds over, what are they going to eat? They're going to eat the fruits. It's what we're designed to eat. That's why. It's good for us. It's not bad for us. But take away all the juice boxes. Don't be fooled by the dairy industry telling you, oh, you need milk. It's complete garbage. The only milk you need is from the mother, and when they're over that age, they don't need any more. Okay, no soda, no processed sugar, limited wheat. And again, you know, I know they're kids. I know you want to have fun. You're not going to be a bad parent taking this stuff away from them. In fact, if you do it young enough, they're going to be excited about that stuff. When they eat some processed sugar later on in life, they're not going to like it. It's going to be way too sweet. Again, stop with medications and antibiotics. Obviously, do this very safely. If they're on a prescription, don't just stop it. You need to talk to your doctor to get them off of this stuff. Do not load them with antibiotics. It needs to be a hardcore emergency, which is very, very, very few far between. Most people, 95% of us, never need antibiotics. Never, ever. Probably 99% of us never need the stuff. It's overused. We just have a lot of fear with it. I've had ear infections before. I've had other infections, and I let my body just go through it. Your body will get rid of it. There's nothing to fear with it. And then finally, let kids be kids. Let them play, let them run, let them eat some dirt. That's what they're supposed to do. It's how they build their immune system. So don't be afraid to let them get a little sicky here and there. That's what we're supposed to do with them, okay? Remember, your body was created to coincide with nature. Your kids are supposed to be outside in nature, playing in nature, playing in the dirt, getting dirty, getting muddy. That's what you're supposed to do. Live according to the laws of nature and expect health. I hope you guys found this helpful. I hope it brings some health to your kids. Pure Life Health Centers, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, if you want your kids to come in for a consultation and an exam, it's totally free. Love to help. Any other questions or concerns, give us a call. I wish you the best of success and love you all.